And come on. This is Keith Williams. Welcome to the Works. And we have Diane Hatz here with us today as our scheduled guest. Welcome to the program, Diane.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. Uh, First of all, welcome to the program, Diane.
Thank you, Keith.
Um, the first question we ask everybody is uh, tell the audience who you are and what you do.
So my name is Diane Hatz. I've had a bit of a multifaceted career. I started many years ago in the 90s in the music industry, spent about 10 years working in a record company and different aspects of it. Was told by the CFO of a large record company that I would never get promoted. So I left and I ended up at a small nonprofit where I started off helping shut down factory farms. I helped start the national movement of healthy food to get people to understand what it was. Um, I lived in New York City for 30 years, and next week it'll be 2 years ago, I left Manhattan and moved to New Mexico. And a year ago, I decided to leave the food movement. COVID had a lot to do with it. Like my business sort of went under. I was putting on events, etc. But I am now a full-time fiction writer. So I just published my first fiction book in September.
Um, so tell us about your book.
Sure. So it's absurdist fiction. Some people call it magic realism. So it's a little zany, but it's based on my time working in the music industry. I was an assistant, and I was around before Me Too was a movement. So it's basically the main character's attempts to get herself out of a job that her boss won't let her go from. And it's her search for herself in this crazy environment. And there's all these like zany characters. The woman, the PR woman, her body parts fall off and she has to re-glue them constantly because she's always so stressed out. So all the characters have different quirks about them. And it's a fast, easy, fun read. You can take it on a surface level and just enjoy it, or you can go underneath. And it's fiction, but it's based on my experiences working in the music industry. Keith, you're on mute if you don't know.
Oh, okay. What prompted you to write this book?
I was going insane. I had spent 3 years in London getting my master's degree in creative writing. I had always wanted to be a writer. So I'll back up a little. When I was a teenager, I loved The Who, the rock band. I wanted to be taken seriously. So I started publishing a fanzine. That got me into grad school for creative writing. I also wanted to live in London for a few years. Came back. I grew up in Delaware, finished my thesis. I'm like, wow, what am I going to do? I don't think I should work in the industry I want to like do my art in. So I'm like, I'll work in the music industry while I write books. What I didn't realize is that corporate, I think anything is not creative. So I was very frustrated. I'm not suited to be an assistant. I'm not suited to work in a large company. I'm more of an entrepreneurial type. So I was just so frustrated that I was able to do, I guess I don't want to say to kill two birds with one stone, but I was able to both save my sanity and write a book about my experiences there. And it also chronicles in the 1990s, foreign companies were starting to buy out music. And I grew up in an era where rock and roll was serious, like music was serious. Napster was just coming out and getting ready to change everything. There were no downloads, there was no social media. I mean, computers were just coming in. So the book chronicles the demise of the corporate music industry and also what still happens. I actually just saw on the news the UN just came out with a workplace report, and employee abuse is still rampant, especially to women and minorities. So this book is still very current. It's about, I think, what happens in many large companies where people in power are given a certain freedom um, to exert control in inappropriate ways. And that's in the book, but it's funny stuff. It's like the character interviews with people, and one of the people, someone who reviewed it, said, "Don't eat while you're reading the booger scene." The guy's rolling around a ball of snot. Like, so it's symbolic and it's gross. And it's the assistant, Alex, her boss yells at her all the time. And I had a boss that would do that. And I went in his office one day and this vein like in his forehead was pulsing, and I just envisioned it exploding. So in the book, her boss explodes blood vessels. She has to sew him up. And that's all showing like control, um, demeaning, like how demeaning some things could be. I mean, yeah, I had to do strange things that were not really within the realm of work, and I did it. And then that's also another part of it is I did it. I didn't stand up, I didn't fight. I have so much respect for the not just women, but the people who have stood up to people in power and have said, no, that is outside like my area of expertise. That is not in my job description. I am not doing that. I am not picking up your children, and washing their feet. And it's insane what some people are made to do. So I really am trying to highlight it in a surrealistic, absurdist kind of way to make it more palatable to certain people who like that type of fiction.
You say you felt like you needed to get out of the you say you felt like you needed to get out of the corporate world.
Oh yeah.
Um, and that you are an entrepreneur, at heart.
Well, I am an entrepreneur. I have an indie publishing company. I indie published my book. I'm a startup. I invested in myself rather than look for like a VC. I mentored startups in food. I know what happens and how much control a VC person has. So I was fortunate. I had saved some money. So I am and I'm an author entrepreneur.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we have another because I interviewed a publisher who decided to excuse me, go into the publishing business, and this person is like you, it's a startup, but it's already gaining momentum in the publishing
Oh, good for them.
industry because uh to me, I think they're very selective in who they actually want uh to publish. That has always been that way, and we find out that a lot of people are going self-publish
So
because they control over what they write. They have control over the type of audience that they have. They pretty much have control over everything. And so I think a lot of people I have seen that are going the indie route.
yes. So and you said the right word because I was going to correct you when you said self-publish. Self-publish is still looked down upon by a lot of people. Self-publishing, that term was used back in the early 2000s when their vanity presses and people were putting their own books out. I indie published, and I am a publishing company, and that's part of my startup. So I happen to have a consulting company. I consulted in food stuff before COVID. So I could still use my company. So it made it a bit easier for the technical setup. But my LLC is my publishing company. So I am also very selective about the writers I choose because I'm the writer that I've chosen. So I'm publishing my own work. I will say this for anyone who wants to do it. Um, I have shed more tears than one person should shed in a lifetime over the last year. It's confusing. It's the Wild West. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I have a Substack newsletter. I've decided that next year my articles are all going to be based on how to indie publish because I want to help people avoid all the pitfalls and mistakes that I made. I mean, if you look on Amazon, there's 2 sets of my book because I had to change ISBN numbers. I mean, I don't want to get technical, but I just spent 2.5 weeks. My website was down. I didn't know what I was doing, and I transferred the domain when I was just trying to do web hosting. So um, I had read, I think it was in 21, 50% of all books were indie published. So it's a lot of people are indie publishing. I know it's the next wave. And it's also, you put all this money or all this effort into your book only to have someone come along, you wait 4 years. It takes years to get an agent, years then for it to get published. Those people will want you to make changes. You don't have control over your book cover. Like you lose so much control. And you're lucky if you're making $1 a book royalty. Whereas if you go do it yourself, you can make $5 or more per book royalty. And what a lot of people don't realize, whether you're traditionally published at a big publishing company or you do it yourself, you're still expected to hire and pay an editor before your book comes out. So there are days I say I should have gone to a big 5 because of all the work it is. But I know that after I get over this learning curve, it'll be easier for the next books. Personally, I would not do it any other way. Because I worked in corporate music, I know it's not much different. Any large corporation, people are there because they're not entrepreneurs, or they're there waiting to go do something entrepreneurial, but it's a certain personality type that's not aligned with creativity. So does a creative person want an uncreative team to take hold of their book? I also was listening to a podcast recently, and the writer, I think she was a writer publisher, worked traditional, but basically they said that agents are basically taking nothing unless you have a massive social media following or you're famous. So indie's the route.
And they always say, well, like for example, if I say, oh, I want to write a book, first thing I hear is where you got to get a literary agent.
Nah. And you know what? I hear that all the time. I want to write a book. Excuse me. And I have to tell people, well, go write it. Because 80% of people say they want to write a book, 20% write it, and a much smaller percent get around to publishing it. Now with indie publishing, it's easier. But my advice to anyone who wants to write is just write. It's going to be crap. Your first draft is going to be crap. You just got to write. And you got to write when you don't want to write. You got to write. You got to write. And then read. There are certain things you need to learn how to do. But I think everybody has at least one book in them.
And ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are watching and listening, if you really want to write a book, go ahead and do it. I just got one piece of a software that can help you with that. It's called Grammarly.
Oh, yeah.
Grammarly. Use it.
And pay for it. It's
And
so
pay.
much better if you get the paid version. I use it for everything. I publish on Medium. I publish a Substack. I have a newsletter. I run everything through Grammarly.
And I'm really sorry that that because I know you had a nonprofit and you end up shutting it down. Uh, f- Food insecurity is still a major issue.
It is.
That's known in certain parts of the country. I mean, you can never have too many of those type of organizations. Uh,
Honestly, Keith, it's everywhere. And I'm a little burnout and jaded, but I felt like Sisyphus. I was pushing a rock up a hill and it kept falling on me. The people on the ground who are really doing the work, the food justice work, don't get the funding. And these very large nonprofits get millions and millions of dollars, and they know how to write a really good report, and they have the money to hire people to write the grants to get more money. But people that I knew that were really doing great work weren't getting any funding. I had this program called Plan, Eat, Share, because I noticed that people around the country were getting together and planting food in public spaces and letting anyone come and harvest it. And it's a phenomenal idea. It really should take off. And I was trying to bring together who was doing what and then build resources so anybody anywhere could plant gardens, like in town squares or a vacant lot anywhere. Some people do it on the front lawn, and they just have boxes where they grow food, and they just help, everyone can just help themselves. I think that is so crucial. Another thing I did before I left New York City, I co-founded a community fridge. And I don't know if you know what they are, but you just stick a refrigerator outside, plug it in, you get a group together, and people donate. You put in what you need, you take out, people take what they need, you put in what you want. In New York City, in one refrigerator, like that you would have in your kitchen, we were feeding up to 2,000 people a week. And I've heard it's still going. They're still feeding people like crazy. And the thing about these fridges, people that go to food banks usually have to fill out forms and show identification. And a lot of people are not comfortable doing that, or they don't have it. Community fridges are totally anonymous. You can come 24/7 and help yourself. And I think they have filled a huge need, and they really became huge during the pandemic. I think it's unconscionable that anyone goes hungry in this country. Unconscionable. Also, don't get me started on the kind of food people get. So one of the things about the fridge, like we had in East Village, is we had a GoFundMe, and people who had means or used to live there donated money. So we would go to Trader Joe's. We would go and buy healthy food. I didn't want junk in there. We really discouraged soda and any type of crappy food, junk food. It was vegetables and fruits, and there's this misnomer that, oh yeah, poor people just want to eat Doritos. No, they can't afford apples, like, no. So I'm a huge believer in community fridges. What I'm hoping now, because I'm a little older, I aged out. Um, don't get me started on ageism. Ageism is so real, but I sort of aged out of the food movement. So, and I was aging out of music when I left it. But there's a whole new generation of people, and I support them. I'm hoping with my writing, like in my book, Rock Gods and Messy Monsters, at the back, I have 4 different nonprofits people can donate to. So I'm hoping that within writing I do, in interviews I do, but also within the book, I can sort of help promote healthy food and healthy food causes. And I actually think I'll have more of an impact that way. I just felt like I was a hamster, and I was just running around and around in a circle.
Well, yeah, I'm totally familiar. I'm totally familiar with that. Instead of having like the refrigerators, where I'm at, here in Alabama, particularly in Birmingham, we have, there's like food cabinets to where,
Yes.
people will have access to, you got dry goods, you got fruits and vegetables. And there are some places where they'll have a fridge where, people can, get food that has to be, preserved in a refrigerator. So I'm very familiar with that because in the inner city, you basically have to drive like 5 or 10 miles,
Right. Right.
to get to the nearest grocery store. And if you don't have a car, that's a double whammy,
Yep.
right there, because the bus, system isn't the best,
Yeah, it's
there
like that
is.
everywhere. It's like that New York has the same problem. I mean, I think every city, and there are people who don't have cars, who can't pay, don't have the money even to take public transportation, or they have to take like 3 buses, and it takes forever, and they don't have the time. They're working 3 jobs. I mean, it's unconscionable. That's all I can say. And I was a big believer in empowering people who live in the areas that need it the most to do it themselves. Like, we were all volunteer, and I had kept hoping we could bring enough funding in from donations to hire someone to manage the fridge who had lost their job, who had grown up in East Village, who needed a means to not just feed themselves, but to get their feet back on the ground. And we just weren't able to do it. And grant writing, like a $5,000 grant, you have to fill out like a 20-page report. I tried to do one once, and they wanted to know all the office supplies. I don't know. How do I know how many pens I'm gonna purchase over the year for this measly $5,000? So I hope, who is it? Jeff Bezos's ex-wife, I think, is the one that she's not telling anyone. There's no way to track her down. There's no way to apply for funding. She's just funding people. She finds out about it. I'm hoping that more billionaires do things like that, where they commit to giving their money away and they support people who really need to be supported. I mean, the other thing that is wrong with the nonprofit world is you get a grant, but it's for the project, but it's not for overhead. So people can't pay themselves. So, you have someone running a fridge who needs food from the fridge. Is wrong. It's wrong. So I'm a huge proponent of a living wage.
So it's kind of like so it's really kind of like a frustrating thing to do. And I know a lot of people, are burned out because they don't have the resources, the funding,
Right.
the manpower, and they decide that they want to do something else. And here's the thing. Um, do what you feel that would bring peace to you. Something that that you want to do, that when you get up in the morning that you're looking forward to doing just
Yeah.
that.
Yes. And buy an extra apple and stick in the community fridge, whether you want to or not. I'm sorry. It's not that hard to do. And
Right.
anybody can just Google it. Like, community fridge in my area. I forget the group. I think it's called Freege, Freedge. I think it's freege.org. They have a national map of where fridges are, and you can see if one's in your area. Because what some people do, like in the East Village, they would take ingredients that people, because we had a pantry also and a fridge, but they would take ingredients, go home and cook meals, and then individually package them and then put them in the fridge. Which I think is great if you don't have a lot of money but you want to help out. I like, for the holidays, if I'm going to buy cranberries, I'll just get 2 bags. And I don't have a lot of money right now. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a startup, but I just think everybody can do something, and on a slightly different note with the holidays, I'm going to admit it. I'm not a fan of the holidays, and we're recording this, just before Christmas. But I just read an article on what to do when you hate the holidays. And I think one of the biggest things people can do is just smile and be nice to the person next, in front of you and behind you in line. Like, just hold a door open for somebody. You don't know what other people are going through. You don't know how stressed somebody is. You don't know what's going on in their life. And if you just smile, or if you really want to be daring, compliment them. Like, if you love someone's boots, just go, "Oh, I love those boots." You think that's minor? Both of you are going to feel so good after you have that little interaction.
So basically you are out of the nonprofit business. Is that correct?
Yes. What I'm
And
hoping is, after I make my 10 million, I can become I can become a foundation. And so I am not working it anymore. I burn out. Um, and you know what it is? I hadn't really thought about it. It's become corporatized, just like music has become corporatized. And it wasn't equality for all. And it wasn't, it became about ego, and it became about who gets this grant. And for me, other people do really well. I just don't feel like the funding was being fairly distributed to people who
and I
really
kind
do it.
of and I definitely agree with you on that, because when the federal government came out with funding for businesses and nonprofits, a lot of the large corporations and large nonprofits were the one that got the money.
Yes.
And everyone else got screwed.
Yes.
Oh, and then there's
Exactly.
another thing that I, hate as well, and that's Giving Tuesday. I can't stand it. I
Giving
hate it.
giving what? Sorry.
Giving Tuesday is always
Oh,
November 29th.
yeah.
Is
I think I think I've raised like $100 out of all my attempts because I was small and I wasn't the whatever large national organization.
and that's who really benefits,
Yep.
from all that. You had the PPP loans that was given out to, large corporations, people that really didn't, need the money. And then you had celebrities like Brett Favre, who actually took
Oh,
$5 million
yeah.
from poor folks in Mississippi
Yeah.
that no one is talking about.
Oh no.
That
Oh
he
no, it was
that
all
he
over
needs
the
to give
news.
that money back.
Did he give it back? Because
Stuff.
that was all over the news, Keith. I heard about it all the time. And I'm in New Mexico.
And he needs to, and he, he still, had not been held accountable for that. Uh,
Um,
that would frustrate a lot of people.
yeah.
You have a desire for a nonprofit, but where are you gonna get the funding? Where are you gonna get the funding from? And that's kind of, pushed people away from, even starting.
Right. And you have to be
Mm.
aggressive and you have to, it's just, you spend more time chasing money than doing the work that you wanted to do. So you burn out,
Mhm.
and it's just not sustainable to work 20 hours a day. So,
So let's move on for that, and let's talk about something that you really like to do, like the indie publishing. This is what is it like being a indie publisher?
I don't know if I can answer that yet. I mean, I just started this all started in September. I've been working toward having the book out since January, February maybe. Um some days I'm completely freaked out and I am so scared and I'm like, what have I done? Because I've taken a big leap and I don't know where I'm going to land. But I haven't been this excited in years. Within that fear is also excitement. So I wouldn't have it any other way. I believe that anybody who has a dream to do anything should take a jump at some point and try. The only failure is not trying. I don't care if you borrow $100,000 and run a store and everything goes under because you tried. You won't have to spend the rest of your life regretting not trying. So with indie publishing, I think I'm going to know in the spring. I'm planning to go to the Independent Book Publishers Association conference. So I can then be around other indie authors and indie presses and, just to sort of see the lay of the land. I am going to say publicly here that I'd say within 10, 15, 20 years at the most, indie publishing is going to be corporatized. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, um, I mean, I was speaking with someone the other week and we were talking about music and and this person said, grunge and indie and alternative music and indie labels probably would not have come about had corporate record companies not become so big. So I think books and publishing is there right now that had the big five become so big and so impenetrable, so many people would not be indie publishing. So I think that as long as there are people who keep it creative and remember indie as indie and support each other, I think it's one of the most exciting things happening in the world right now. I mean, it's why I'm doing it. But as a business, it's not crypto. You know what I
Uh,
like? What I like about it is you're going to get back what you put out. The
mm,
reality with writing is I just read that now the average number of books any writer sells is 200. And I refuse to believe that. So you have to come in with an unwavering faith in your abilities.
Sounds like there you have experienced some challenges as an indie author. Is that correct?
Correct. Everyone does. I mean, everyone does. But it's exciting. It's like if you want to climb a mountain, your challenge is not to fall off the mountain, but you're still going to climb it and you're going to love it. So, um, even the nightmares I've had with I had to get a different ISBN and I changed where I was getting it printed. And, this is like after everything was in motion, I learned so much. And though it might be frustrating, I'm using new parts of my brain. I've never felt more creative. Just grocery shopping is more creative for me now. So it's opening up me up in all areas of my life. Um, with regard to the publishing specifically, is I'm only publishing myself, but I have the option. If I down the road want to publish other people, you know, I can.
Is Rock Gods and Messy Monsters, is that your first book?
It's my first book. It's actually a republish. I'd published it first in 2008 because I was so depressed back then because I couldn't get an agent and I had so many rejections and some of them were nasty. So last spring, a friend of mine from my early days in New York City, we were both temping at the Rainbow Room at the call center. And that's in Rockefeller Center. Anyway, we'd lost touch. She had a kid, moved away, and she got in touch with me. She's like, Diane, I just found your book and I just read it and I just shut the cover and I just quit my job. I'm so inspired. So she designed, her name's Cree from Firehorse West. She designed the book cover. She has just opened her own company doing experiential design and conceptual design for pop-ups, retail, etc. And we're going to start a podcast, we think, like once a month. We're going to do a thing in the new year. So I'm going for it.
Um, yeah, I think you already mentioned, what the book is about, but what message does this book convey?
The major message is that sometimes our dreams can be illusions or nightmares, but it's up to us to realize that the door is always open and we can always walk out. Whatever situation you're in, you can always walk away. Doesn't matter how dire you think your situation is. You have the ability to open your eyes to see what's happening and to walk away. And that's really what it's about, because this character was stuck in this job and she kept thinking, if I work harder, if I go on one more interview, if I do one more this, then everything will be okay. And it wasn't until, I mean, I don't want to give away the ending, but it just wasn't until something happened and her eyes were open and she realized she had the power to do something about it. And I think that's true in every aspect of life. And I do understand there are some circumstances where it's more difficult, but I still think each of us can open our eyes and accept that we have the power to do something about it, to take some type of positive action. So that's the basic theme of the whole book.
So you mentioned earlier that someone had read your book and they decide to uh, change careers, go into a different endeavor. I kind of see that as a theme for this book, as as you was talking. Is obviously you had someone that read that book, and felt that they needed a change, in their life, and they took that leap of faith, and now they're on a path that makes them happy.
Yes. So if I have a dream for this book, it would be to use it as a catalyst to build a community of people who want to do this type of thing. I've done it. She's done it. I have one other friend who's always said she wanted to write a book. She just finished her first draft because she was inspired by this book. And another friend, she hasn't started, but she got a desk. She's in France. She has her desk and her place set up, and she said January 1st, she's going to start to write a book. And it doesn't have to be writing a book. Like my friend Cree, she's not writing a book. She's doing a design company, but we're all following our dreams. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm on the downslide. I wish 20 years ago I'd had the courage and the support to stand up. So Cree, who had quit her job, and when we reconnected, she's the person. We had many Zooms. I was writing, and the book I'm working on now, the new book, I was working on that, but she was one that convinced me to republish this book. She's like, Diane, this is still relevant. You have it all wrong. It's not about the music industry. It's about finding yourself. It's cautionary tale. So she's the reason I started this whole thing. I'm indebted to her forever. We have accountability calls, which we're talking once a week. We give each other assignments. Yeah, we're really trying to boost each other. And I really hope I can find a community of people, other people who want to do it, come in and we can all support each other, because that's how you build a movement. And I believe that humans were not built to work in major corporations and to be told what to do all day long. I do know there's some people who just want to raise a family. They're okay doing it, and that's fine. You want to be an accountant, fine. You like be in a large company, fine. But so many people have a creative edge to them that I'm hoping that from this, that like with me and Chris, there's two of us. My doctor, my GP, she just left. And in my last physical, we started talking, and she has a master's in creative writing. We've just started meeting once a week here in Santa Fe, where I live. So she's starting a writing. So I truly believe, and it's not me, but this is just something that's been going on. And COVID really accelerated it. I mean, the great resignation, people are finally like, I'm going to go sell those crocheted finger puppets. I think that's great, and I think that everyone should try.
And we know that that creativity has been corporatized, and that can lead to mediocrity, stagnation, and it also kills creativity because you can't really be yourself.
Yes.
You at the mercy of whatever that corporation or that business has set up. So you really cannot be yourself.
Yes.
I too have got out of the corporate world because I wasn't allowed to be me.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. And congratulations for getting out.
I mean, it was probably one of the best things that I have ever done, in my life. And so, I got into community organizing. I'm a podcaster. I run my own business, and I'm in control of what I do.
Exactly.
I'm in
Were you
control.
scared? Keith, were you scared when you first did it? When you took the leap, when you finally said, I'm doing this?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
kind of reminds me when I, joined the military, and, I was getting off that bus, to, get in formation, only for my drill sergeant to be yelling at me, all the time, and I thought to myself, what did I get myself into? And I was like really scared. So I felt that scenario all over again. I was like, what did I just get myself into? Uh, I quit my job for a number of reasons. I mean, one of the reasons, was because I was, basically getting paid, penny, and I
Mm.
couldn't, live off of that. And then, management, treated me so bad.
Yep.
It's like they like set me up to fail.
Yep. Keith, read my book. Send me your address afterwards. I'll mail you one. You'll see what I went through. It's I think one of the flaws in corporations is that people who get promoted to manager rarely ever get management training. And I was there at one point in the nonprofit world, and I was a horrible
No, they
boss.
don't. No, they don't.
Right.
A lot of them that you know that go into corporate management don't have a lick training and education. Is who you know.
Exactly.
It's not what you know. You know,
Exactly. Well, that's the problem because a lot of them don't know a lot about anything, and you're under them and you do know some things. And if you try to express your knowledge and share your knowledge, you're just put down, you're just stepped on.
yep.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not going to engage myself, like that anymore. I mean, the last job, that I had, I looked my boss in the eye, and I'm like, I quit.
Ah, good for you.
I quit. I quit. I quit. I just gave him that look like I had it here. You're not paying. They're not paying, really well. This is a multi-million-dollar corporation,
Yeah.
and you give
Yeah.
me something. And
Yeah.
I just gave him that look. I'm done. I'm out. See ya.
Yeah. And the
You know,
thing is, it's like, even if you're, the pay is a huge thing, but you're not treated with, not you, but I was not treated with respect either. And it's like, well, you're not paying me and you're not treating me with respect.
yeah, I've been there. I've been there too.
Yeah.
And it. I'm hopefully I'm going to see in the near future why your book is still relevant, in 2022 because people be like, hey, I'm more than just a number. I'm
Right.
more than just a body, that's making someone else rich.
Yep. Well,
I
that's
have something to
that's what it
offer.
goes down to is, oh, I'm working 18 hours a day to make someone else rich? No. No.
I'm like, I want to get paid too.
Yeah. It
And
blows.
and it's not as easy, it's not as easy to take that leap of faith as people,
Correct.
romantic, sides because it's a lot of work. Like for example, in community organizing work, everyone romanticizes it because you know you're always on TV. I always, see you on the news, blah 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 blah. But these folks have no idea the work that goes
Yeah.
behind the scenes,
Yeah.
the planning, the meetings, the execution. No one wants to hear that, but everybody wants to be on TV. Everybody wants to be on the radio. Everybody wants to be interviewed, for a newspaper and magazine. But everybody don't have the slightest clue what goes on behind the scenes. And
No,
that's just anything.
I would
Whether you are writing a book or you going to
right.
business,
Right.
still the same thing.
Right. And I would encourage them to go organize something, because I agree with you. There's talkers and doers, and I'm not faulting the talkers. The talkers talk, we need talkers, but talkers are not doers. So, you know,
Some of them they talk too much. It,
we're not
it's
gonna
like
right.
it's like 95% talking and five
Yeah.
percent work.
And you know what? Those 95% are the ones that'll get the grant money. And the ones who are doing all the work, those are
That's
too
that's
hard
a
working.
that's
Yeah,
that's that's a huge that's the problem.
I know. I know.
That's a huge problem.
I know.
uh, as a matter of fact, the people that got these loans and and grants, and stuff. Number one, they didn't need it, and then number two, you had a lot of folks that they really didn't have a business and they really didn't have
Yeah.
a nonprofit. They got caught spending that money on themselves.
Yeah.
To where that money could have been used to someone who was actually doing the work. I mean, you said so yourself. These were talkers. They knew how to play the game. They talked
Yep.
their way, into getting that money that they did not need.
Yeah, I heard it was basically gone before it was even opened up because the large corporations took so much of it. It,
Yep,
it was it was just, yeah. I think it was a well-intentioned effort, but I don't understand how people can be so greedy. I just don't. I mean, if I had a multi-billion-dollar company, I would spend my time giving college scholarships to the children of all my workers and to make sure that they had a wage they could live off of and, provide low interest loans if they want to buy a house, like do things to help the people working for me. I don't understand how companies just cut corners and they think people are going to take it. And that's where I think it's gotten to, and I saw all these great resignation like segments on shows and I remember like Savannah Guthrie, who I love, and she's like, "Well, just work hard and get to the top." No, lady, no, you were lucky. I know a lot of people that worked really hard who never got anywhere. So, people are like, "I'm busting my butt for somebody else's gain. You're not paying me. I'm done." I think COVID like really tipped a lot of people over the edge. And I do wonder where they are. I mean, they could be like me. I was lucky I had saved money. So I have some freedom, but I will always be a consultant from here on out. So I don't know if I'd have your guts to be a full-time, like somebody controlling me and just look them in the face and say I quit. But as a consultant, I have no worries walking away from something. I'm never going to let anyone control me again.
Yes, absolutely. And we got about less than 10 minutes here. And so you mentioned something about being in the music industry. So what was that like?
The cliches are true. And this is in the 90s when it was still very rock and roll and like a lot of partying, saw tons of shows. I think the best thing I loved about the music industry is we would get tickets for so many shows and I would go to anything. I saw so many shows of bands and artists I would not have otherwise seen. It's very insular. So when you're in, you're in, you're out, you're out. Um, but I worked at I started at a smaller, it was indie. They had just sold. That was really cool. It was very laid back. Um, but then I ended up at a large company and it was like anyway, I could have been in an accounting firm. So, I screamed down the hall one day. I was in the marketing department at this label, and I just screamed down the hall, we could be selling tampons and nobody would know the difference. Silence, because it's true, and they bring out their like, here's our marketing plan, here's our superstar marketing plan, here's our indie artist marketing plan. Like there wasn't creativity, there wasn't. I mean, my one boss spent, I think 6 months almost every day just trying to buy an apartment. She was buying an apartment. She wasn't working with the artist. She wasn't doing anything to try to help sell their records. She was buying an apartment. That's what it was like.
I'm kind of curious to know, how did you came up with the name, of the book?
Um, so Rock Gods, these aliens buy a record company because back in the 90s, other countries, corporations from other countries were buying out US record labels. So they hatch a half human, half clone bot. I called it half human, half robot thing that they make into a superstar. So that's the Rock God. And Messy Monsters is that the comedic characters, the executive staff were all a bunch of messy monsters. So I don't know if it's the best title. Doesn't have SEO, but I like it. It sort of fits it for me.
I mean, what do you mean it does not have SEO? 'Cause I think Google, I mean, it's a unique title.
Oh, thank
You
you.
know, the SEO algorithms would, love to have this crawling on their search engine.
We'll see. I hope so. I'll just go out there and Google
Well,
it.
I mean, take it from someone who has been in the industry for over 20 years.
Oh,
I
thank
know
you.
what I'm I know what I'm talking about.
Like, it's just, it's just one of those things that just came to me. It was called Rock Gods of Oct, and the record company is called Oct Records. I don't know why I came up with that. I just like this guttural spittiness of it. But friends had told me way back when, don't know, no one can, and it was hard to pronounce. So when I republished it, I changed it to Rock Gods and Messy Monsters because that made more sense to me and it's easier to pronounce.
And I think you mentioned something that the music industry has been corporatized, just like the publishing industry, to where
It
you
fell
can't
apart. I mean, it
you,
fell
you
apart.
you're not really, because I remember back in the day that you had a lot of artists, they were singer songwriters. They really put their creativity in their lyrics. Some of them was like actual poetry,
Yeah.
but when it started corporatizing itself, they kind of like went along with the culture. Okay, this is what you need to do, in order to make us money.
I
You
sat
gotta.
in meetings where that's all they talked about is how to make money. My boss, one of my bosses, actually said, what could we do to take more royalties? And every band should have a second job. They should not think they can live off this money, you know, and that's corporate music. I was all came in and I will qualify it. The A&R people, which are the people that go out and find the bands, they tended to be pretty cool. The ones that I met were actually really into music. So not everybody is horrible in a major record company. It's just it's all about money when you're in a corporation. It's all about money. People have to meet numbers. There were executives who I don't think ever listened to the radio. They when I was there, okay, I'm an assistant. I'm doing sampling clearances for the entire major record company. Nobody cared because they didn't think sampling would become anything. So if it was an indie band that were cool, I'd try, and it was always seemed to be Miles Davis tracks. I would have to identify on like Miles Davis album where it was that they were sampling and then charge them. So cool bands, I'd be like $5. If it was a large label, 100,000. And then finally they started seeing that we can make money from this. So when I left, there's like 9 lawyers now do it now. But like they just didn't, they were Napster came out and like all us, because I was in my 20s then, we're all like, hey, this downloading internet thing is going to be big. They're all doing, let's sell ringtones of music from bands. And we're like, you guys are crazy. So it deserved to fall apart. And again, indie, grunge, alt, I mean, a lot of really good, I mean, rap might have come out of frustration. I mean, I don't know. When we get into rap and like newer music, I was listening to classical. I left and sort of started listening to classical music. So, but there was a lot of good came out of it. I just think that any writer or band who thinks they're going to sign with a major and make a lot of money, unless they have some kind of connection or deal going in, odds are they're not. And I used to tell people, if you get signed by a record company, look at your advance as all the money you're going to make, because odds are you're not going to make any more, and make it a good one.
And you find yourself having to do something else, and you can't really be that your creative self. I might always be a robot.
Yeah. Well, in my book, The Assistant, when she comes in, all the assistants, when they come into work, have to unzip their head and pull their brain out and put it in an urn on their desk because they're not allowed to think. They just have to take orders.
Nah, I can't get with that. Okay, we got to wrap it up here, but it's been really nice to chat with you on today,
You,
and
no,
certainly
you too,
has
Keith.
certainly has some great information for us. And I'm going to send you my address so you can
Okay,
mail me a book. I'm really interested in reading it.
sure. I would love to. Just make sure it's email me after and I'll send you one in the next couple days. My
Oh,
Christmas
great.
gift, my Christmas gift to you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's not a requirement. And it's not a requirement for book authors to, send me a book. We don't do any incentives or charge anyone.
As it
You
should
know,
be. It's my gift to you because I want to. Nobody else is obligated to do this, but
I'm not gonna knock your blessing, and I'm definitely not gonna knock your hustle. It's a really good one. Now, how can someone be able to get a hold of you?
oh,
Like I know in the future you may, be in a capacity to where, you can help others publish their book. And I know that's coming. So, let's just get that out right now. How they'll be able to reach you if they want to do that or if they want to purchase your book.
sure. So I'm on Facebook. It's Diane Hatz author. Rock
And
Gods
that's Hats with a Z.
HATZ. Yes. I am my website is rockgods@messymonsters.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all the usuals. So you can find my Substack. It's Diane Hatz, HATZ .substack.com. That's my newsletter that I put out. And really just go on Amazon, just Google Rock Gods and Messy Monsters, and it'll come up and you can get more information. And I think even in there, I have some, it won't link because Amazon doesn't do that, but if you read through the whole thing, there'll be some links to how you can get in touch with me.
Okay. And one last thing before we shut down. Now, it is a tradition here at the Austin Led broadcast section to where we have a guest to come on one of our four podcasts that our guests will provide the last word. So, Diane, what would be your last word?
One word, or can I say like a sentence?
Oh, doesn't matter.
Okay. When you can, sit outside in the sun and watch clouds float by. No music, no reading material, no pets, no people. Just sit and watch what happens with the clouds because you can find eternal peace in the sky.
Wow, I'm speechless. And we're going to just close it down right here.
Happy holidays, Keith. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. This is The Works. I'm Keith Williams, your host. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family. As you know, we always record every Sunday evening, normally on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central. But every now and then we have to make adjustments. And so we don't mind, doing that, probably because I'm the principal podcaster and I can, rearrange my schedule so I'm not bound by corporate time. So we pretty much can do whatever we want in order to reach the audience that we would like, to reach. So that's why we do what we do. And it's a public service to all of our guests who want to be on, as well as a public service to you, the listener and viewer. So thank you so much, everyone. Um, please tune in next time where we'll have another great guest. Until then, good evening.